Tokenized stock values are sharply increasing, are currently at over $720 million, up 97% in the past 30 days. The amount of monthly transfers has increased by more than 180% in the past 30 days to about 500 million. Additionally, the number of monthly active addresses and holders is rapidly increasing, rising by about 49% and 28%, respectively. In light of this, it is clear that one of the major forces behind the acceleration of all of the major developments taking place right now is on Do. However, I'm absolutely keeping an eye on some of these other important people, such as the XRP ledger, for instance. I am aware that there is just one tokenized stock on XRP when we examine the networks here. It has a value of around 55.4 million. However, I do believe that tokenized stocks are still in their infancy. Looking at these values, however, makes it abundantly evident that the stock market of the future will be based on chain. Wall Street as we know it today is not going to continue to exist, in my opinion. And it seems to me that all of these major companies, such as Robinhood and the Nasdaq, have been outlining their plans in detail. And they're saying, guess what? It actually started to happen this year. Our goal is to switch to trading around the clock. Putting equities on the blockchain and letting it serve as the central infrastructure for this is the only way to accomplish that. As we give this our full attention, we consider the factors that make it possible, which are undoubtedly regulations. Speaking of that, we recently received a significant update. Paul Atkins, the chair of the SEC, stated that cryptocurrency is currently his top focus. The SEC has consistently been quite pro-crypto, as you may have seen if you've been following any of my recent videos and the one I made about them switching the switch. ETFs are already in favor of cryptocurrency. All of the barriers to old Quinn ETFs are beginning to be removed, apart from Project Crypto. In an effort to provide clarification, the SEC and CFTC are beginning to collaborate on a few crypto-related issues. I mean, it's very obvious that the way that crypto is seen and handled by organizations like the SEC and even the CFTC has entirely altered. Additionally, on the 29th, we do have from Paul Atkins over here. We are hosting a joint discussion on regulatory harmonization with the CFTC today. I'm excited to collaborate with my colleagues throughout the administration to make sure the CFTC and SEC work together to support American investments and innovation. Once more, we are aware that the SEC and the CFTC are collaborating to create a harmonized framework for cryptocurrency. This will bring forth a comprehensive regulatory framework for cryptocurrency, which these authorities will be working on. We have been discussing and speculating about this for years, but it is finally happening. And I'm really happy about this because the CFTC recently held an event, I believe it was, in the US, but don't quote me on that, where they spoke to smaller cryptocurrency companies about how to handle regulations and how to provide clarity for the industry so that innovation can flourish, while also ensuring that these businesses continue to operate to the fullest extent possible. Therefore, we want to ensure that nothing is set back. We want to make sure that nothing is also choked off because, even with Operation Chokepoint 2.0, activities in this area were very difficult to complete for a long time because there were obstacles at every turn. Everything that stood in our way has vanished as of 2025. Now, the main focus is on how to control this area. How can we make this area more clear? And how can we guarantee that the United States leads the crypto world? Speaking more specifically about that, Caroline DePam, the acting head of the CFTC back in the USA, just gave us an update. She is happy to have concluded the biggest roadshow ever, Invest in America, which I personally delivered to tens of thousands of innovators throughout Europe, the Middle East, and even Asia. America is open for business now that the regulations surrounding cryptocurrency are clear. Come build, hire, and invest. Indeed, our regulations are clear. This is really crucial, gentlemen, because without that regulatory clarity, cryptocurrency won't be able to realize its full potential. That's the reason I've always said, even with XRP and even with Ripple, I am aware that all of these utility-based enterprises have a fictitious value attached to them these days. I have discussed this. I've talked about it a lot. In my opinion, practically all of the values we observe in this area are entirely fictitious. I examine what's going on with normal for this reason. As we observe, the entire cryptocurrency landscape is shifting to accommodate these utility-based projects and make sure they, you know, reach their true worth and are used appropriately. This is due to legislation as well as the institutional players jumping on board. This is something that I want everyone who owns XRP to realize. That true worth won't be apparent until regulatory certainty gains traction, and that is just beginning to be worked on. Speaking of that roundtable conversation between the SEC and the CFTC, Paul Atkins said that today marks a watershed in the history of the American financial markets at the Joint Roundtable on regulatory harmonization between the SEC and the CFTC. The CFTC and the SEC have been working in parallel for far too long. We are blazing a new path, too frequently at odds with one another. Take a look. I think that today is a watershed in the history of the financial markets in the United States. The American public has been forced to pay the price of duplication, delay, and confusion as a result of the SEC and CFTC operating in parallel lanes for far too long and frequently clashing with one another. We are past that era. We are setting a new course that will firmly establish America as the global leader in finance. Today. Therefore, I would suggest that it is really significant that these two agencies are collaborating on this. Again, this is what we needed to see, so I think it's really incredible. Returning to 2022, 2023, and 2024. Now it's occurring at last. I am aware of how long we had to wait. We are finally witnessing that collaborative effort, even though it has been a long time coming. Additionally, this is a partnership with significant market players. Thus, we're tapping into both the TradFi and cryptocurrency sides of the industry, which excites me greatly. Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, is also here today and says, "I've never been more bullish about clear rules for crypto. In order to preserve their monopoly, banks want to outlaw rewards, and we're making sure the Senate understands that it is unacceptable to save the large banks at the expense of American consumers." Take a look. As you are all likely aware, the Genius Act for stable currency has already been enacted, which is fantastic. The market structure must be passed as the next phase. Thank you for viewing. Goodbye.